Okay, everybody, welcome back to Sideline Sports. I am Trevor, your host. This is Alex, my co-host. Hit the like, hit the subscribe. Today we're talking about 49ers. They lost 17 to 29 to the Dolphins in a season that just felt like there was injuries along the way, every step of the way, and that game kind of just encapsulated what the whole season felt like. They were always on the edge of getting a win, but then not quite getting there in the fourth quarter, mainly giving up a lot of leads. So anyway, Niners are now officially eliminated. So where do they go next year and in the offseason? That's what we're going to talk about today a little bit. So everything from coaching to the offense and the defense and who's going to be moving on. Brock Purdy is going to get that contract. There's no way around it. There's nobody else out there the Niners are going to move on for. So Purdy's getting that huge contract that everybody is talking about, whether or not he's worth it or not. It doesn't matter. He's getting it. So, all right, Alex. So who are we going to move on from in the offseason? It sounds like probably Bosa, not Bosa. I'm sorry. Debo is the odd man out so far.
Yeah,
What do you think?
it could be Greenlaw. I was looking at articles saying as he played his last time because if he's going to get paid, I don't know. It's really hard to say. I would say Debo for starters, and then
Yeah.
they might have to lose somebody on the defensive side to even out the money. So it could be. I mean, I wouldn't want it to be, but it could be Greenlaw. I mean, you never know if Trent Williams will make a decision about wanting to retire or anything like that, which would leave a gigantic hole in their O line. It'd free up money, but not in the way you'd want. Um, but it is a team that has got like a lot of progs, very good at manipulating contracts to have deferred money and all that. So I think Debo did that and Kittle restructured.
Yeah.
But there's only so much of that you can do. So I would imagine Debo and perhaps if there's Chatter, Greenlaw, or somebody else on the defensive side, excuse
Yeah,
me.
well, Greenlaw's contract is up after this year, I believe, and it would be about the money because you could
Yep.
see in the Dolphins game how
Oh my
much
God.
Greenlaw affected the defense there, right? So with him on
The
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 field,
Rams or did he play against the Dolphins?
he did play. He played with
Sorry.
the Dolphins, but I'm sorry, he came back against the Rams. You're right. He
That
was not
half was
in
like,
versus the
holy crap.
Dolphins. I'm
Yeah.
sorry, you're totally right. It was the Rams, not the Dolphins. You could see it against the Rams when he came back.
Oh yeah. It
Um,
was the best player. I mean, and it changed everything. Like that, they didn't have a first down for like a half, and then he went out and that quitter crybaby refused to come in, and
yeah.
then it went downhill. But I don't know. They might not be able to afford him. Unfortunately, I mean, if you got to pay Purdy, and you probably do because who else was it going to be?
Yeah.
Then you probably lose Debo. And I would say now, thinking about it, if Greenlaw's contract is up, yeah, probably. They might just not have the money, you know.
If they lose Greenlaw, that would be a major, major shot in the foot.
It would.
I
I mean,
just, yeah.
I didn't think was it Buckner? Is Armstead even where did Armstead's gone too, right? Or
Yeah.
but
So,
Buckner
okay.
when they traded him first, I was like, wait, what? Because it was like Buckner, Armstead, Bosa, and it's like, well, yeah, you can't keep all of them, and they got. And I just was, and I thought Buckner was more highly rated than Armstead, and Buckner was the one who wanted. You just can't keep everybody.
No.
So I would think they got to lose a guy from each side at least to be able to create some money for Purdy, and I would think it'd be Debo on the offense and Greenlaw on the
Could
defense.
be Greenlaw. It might be, I might be, in the minority here, but I still feel like trading Bosa is not such a bad idea. I just don't think that he is been performing the last few years. But as we talked earlier, that could have a lot to do with the defensive line and the performance of the defense in general, putting a lot of pressure on Bosa to try and get at the quarterback. But there weren't many quarterback sacks by Bosa, and last year it was a lot of garbage time sacks. So I know I'm saying something that is probably sacrilegious as a 49er fan, but I just don't. I think I'd rather sign Greenlaw and trade Bosa, to be honest. I think Greenlaw has a bigger impact for the 49ers playing alongside Fred Warner than Bosa has had. There are going to be a lot of things that are going to be thought about by the 49er organization, just like we're talking here. who can you move on from? You want to keep them all, but you just can't. You just can't. So I do think that Debo is the odd man out. I think.
Yeah, I think so too. I think that he's that you could probably get three players to each do skill positions that he's doing as a Swiss Army knife, which is nice, but then he's not specializing in any one area. I mean, I liked what he did on special teams. I thought it was better than what some of the other stuff have been doing, but it's not good enough to pay him what they're paying him. And the same thing with the receiving and the running, where it's just kind of like you're just taking carries away from somebody else, on for the running game. I mean, like, well, we're not healthy, great, like feed him, but I think it's kind of like gimmicky, you
Yeah,
know.
it is. Where does he really fit? You already have Christian McCaffrey, so he doesn't fit in that backfield anymore, and
And
he
Jordan
doesn't
Mason
fit
and
as a
Brando, if
wide
they're healthy,
receiver.
yeah,
So, yeah,
he's not the
yeah,
Christmas route runner. Like if Ayuk is fully there, not having any issues in the preseason where he's like fully engaged, and so is McCaffrey. Ayuk's not normally the guy who would have like that was uncharacteristic. I was
right.
frustrated, but it was like because the whole and even he admitted it, and that's not a guy who's going to let that happen again.
No, I don't
That's not a
think that
dude who's
Ayuk's
going to.
going to come back and look like that again.
No, he
So
won't. He won't let it.
I
He's
didn't like the
probably
way he acted as far as getting his contract done, but it won't happen like this in the offseason.
no.
No way.
No, he's a prideful enough person, and he's never been a cancer on a team before. He even admitted he probably could have done things differently while he was doing the contract negotiations. So that's not a bad dude. That's just sometimes situations go sideways, and
Yeah.
that guy's gonna have an anger burn to like, you know, go next level on himself
Yeah.
next year.
And
And
when
then
you
you
have him
also,
paired next to Jennings next year, it's going to be great.
yeah,
It's going to be explosive. And so
Pearsall, get him some more looks the rest of the season. I like him. I think I'm not saying, he's still in his infancy of his career, but I mean, he wasn't like that Bell guy we were getting frustrated with.
yeah.
He definitely like any of stats for a guy who got shot in the freaking chest in broad daylight in Union Square is a plus. Like that's some warrior stuff to come back and play and not be so traumatized by being shot in broad daylight
Right. You're not
while
going to move off
shopping.
that guy. He's a rookie anyway. You're not going to move off him. You got
No,
to see what
but
he's
I
got.
liked what he did. Like I think he's a solid, bottom of the food chain receiver who will move himself up, if he continues the way it looks like he's
Oh,
continuing,
yeah.
you know.
He's fast. He can
Yeah.
catch. He's 100% part of the future. No doubt about it.
Yeah.
So yeah, let's talk a little bit about coaching then. I mean, do we move off of some of the coaches? I personally don't like Sorensen, but the only guy I probably see out there that I would love to have in his place is obviously Sala. If Sala was willing to come back,
Yeah.
I would move on from Sorensen. But maybe because of all the injuries, Sorensen gets a pass this year.
Yeah, it's hard to say. Like I would think like if you can get if you can get somebody better, I would get somebody. But then again, it is also hard to. It's not a true full season because he was missing a number of parts.
Yeah. So he'll probably get a pass. The
Yeah,
special teams guy was horrible. I don't know the coach's name. I forget. I'm sorry.
we
He needs to
hopefully
be
won't need
gone.
to.
Yeah. Yeah. He needs to be gone. That special teams needs to be revamped. And yeah, you go from there.
Particularly awful. I think for the Lions game, I think you see somewhat like a third but now it's no, there's not a third, like, but what used to be the third preseason game where it
Yeah.
was the most off of the first teamers that you would see. I think you see like a half for the starters, like
Yeah.
or less if like Kittle gets what he needs for 1,000. Like I would just like him to get that so that he has a little feather in his cap, and he'll be cool because they're going to shut him down. I know they shut Greenlaw down, and I think that
I think
Kittle
they'll
will
get
get.
that for Kittle. I do.
Yeah,
I do think they'll give Kittle that unless they
that's like
don't want
one
to pay
catch if
him,
he's lucky.
unless it's attached to money and they don't want to pay him, right? And but they never do that. So I think Kittle will get these last two games to stat pad for sure. So but and obviously he's not going anywhere. So I think as long as Brock Purdy does a team friendly contract, the people we get rid of are minimal. We got the draft, talking about moving on the pick, possibly moving the pick on in the draft with Debo Samuels in a trade for a really, really good offensive lineman or a
Yeah,
great defensive lineman. I personally want to see offensive linemen
I do. I
Purdy
do
was under
too.
stress, right? So yeah.
Particularly if you're just paying him. And look at he gave like cars to all his O linemen,
Hmm.
and he knows how hard a season it was.
Yeah.
And I think that if the defense is healthy, you might just have to roll with it. But I
Yep.
think you take Debo. I mean, and a draft and the draft pick, maybe see if you can get somebody who's a win now kind of offensive lineman, um, or you just draft a lot of O line, in the
Well, that's
draft.
really a matter of where the Niners feel like they're at, right? Are they
Yeah,
in win now or are they already looking at the future? I feel like they got one more great season, so win now is where I would go
yeah,
to drafting. So that's what I would do. I'd couple that pick with maybe another guy like Debo and get yourself a really, really good offensive lineman. You got Trent Williams for maybe another year or two at best.
yeah.
So take advantage of that, take care of Brock Purdy and let's go try and get one before we start over. Brock Purdy is your quarterback of the future, but everybody else on this team is not your future. He is going to be built around. Everybody else is kind of on borrowed time, 2, 3 more years. Kittle will be there for a while. That's fine. Christian McCaffrey probably there for a little bit too, but everybody else is pretty much on the last leg of their tenure with the 49ers. So it's time to start getting it done now or look for your future now. I kind of feel like go and make a push and try and make that trade, make something happen for the Niners in the offseason. Plus, all the injuries that they had. Once that is not a factor, you're going to see them come back next year much stronger. So, yeah.
Sometimes sitting out the postseason is good. Like, I mean, look at the Warriors. They had, what was it, four or five straight finals appearances, and that
Yep.
wears a team out. And then some team comes along that hasn't been in the playoffs every single year for 5, 6 straight years and played 2 more years of basketball essentially than everyone else.
Yep.
And the legs helped them. And then the Warriors, they beat the Celtics after a year or two, of faltering.
Yeah.
And why? But they were super terrible. And
Yep.
COVID hit, but that gives you the rest that you need. You can't. Oh, there's a toll that going on a run like that takes. And
Absolutely.
there are teams like the Chiefs that are able to replenish, or the teams like the Niners back in the day that were able to replenish. And then there's the bill that comes due sometimes for Super Bowl teams, where it's like, hey, that was a huge ask to do that many appearances and to go that far. Here's the bill in the form of a ton of injuries. And that's what the
Yeah.
49ers got this year, was like that Super Bowl run last year had a price to it, and we paid it. The 49ers paid it this year. So hopefully next
100%.
year we can have a new meal to start.
Yes. And that's where we're going with this. I mean, the bottom line is that any championship team has to pay their dues, and that means the time down. Look at the Warriors this year, having really, really tough times getting wins, trying to get one or two guys next to Curry to get that one more before he's out the door.
Yeah.
This is kind of that same type of situation the 49ers are in. Let's get one before these guys are out the door. So yeah, they're in win mode, win now mode,
I
and
think so, yeah.
it's it's now or never. So go get that, go move that pick and go get that guy. That's a great idea. Unless there's somebody in the draft you think that's going to impact their team now. There are players that are out there, far and few between though. So unless they drop down to number 9, maybe, even then it's a stretch. I would move the pick with another player because you got to move those players anyway and go get yourself somebody. So that's where we're at with that. The offense is doing, going to be doing better next year with all the injuries. The defense will be doing better. All the coaches are going to get a pass except for maybe the special teams coach, which shouldn't get a pass, I don't think. And maybe if Salah's out there, even the defensive coordinator gets replaced by Salah. But aside from that, I think he gets a pass. So that pretty much sums up where we are with the 49ers. We all know that they're in win mode now. And we know where they're at with the players that probably they're going to move off of, and players that, sometimes they're smart picks. Sometimes when you look at it not as a fan, but you look at it from the numbers perspectives, those players that you don't want to move off of, maybe you could move off of because they're really not performing the way you would expect them to. There's a few players on the Niners like that, not many. That's why it's so hard to come up with the idea of who do you move off of. But Debo is, like you said, that gimmick guy. You don't have a legitimate spot for Debo anymore. You only had him there when you didn't have the running game, but now you got Christian McCaffrey. So he doesn't fit. He doesn't fit anymore. He's the guy to be moved. I'm very confident in that. Are they going to move more players? They might have to. Depends on Brock Purdy's contract. We'll see that. We'll cover that in the offseason. We're not just going to stop doing Niners until the preseason starts up again next year and training camp. We're still going to cover their moves. So we'll see where that goes. But tough. It's tough to find out. It's tough to decide. It's tough to decide who that guy's going to be. I don't envy the Niners organization right now.
No, it's not going to be fun. I mean, you don't want to get rid of anybody, but they're going to have to.
Yeah. There's tough moves to be made. Disappointing season. But when you have that many injuries, how angry can you be as a fan? How disappointed can you be after so many injuries? Now, if we were talking about a team who just didn't perform and everybody was healthy, I think I'd be way more pissed off than I am right now, to be honest. But right now, I just recognize, we all should recognize that this 49er team has won an awful lot. They're tired, they're injured, they're hurt. Let's hope they can come back next season, reboot, and let's see them kind of pick up where they left off last season and forget this one.
Yep.
Yeah,
Do over.
it's a do-over. So anyway, guys, that's our podcast for today. Thank you for watching. We all appreciate your support. Keep hitting the subscribe, keep hitting the like, hit that bell. It'll notify you when we're back online because it's not consistent quite yet. And we'll see you in the next one. Anyway, have a good one, guys.